Good morning and welcome to a beautiful summer's day here from the Lotte World Tower in Seoul. I'm staying at the Signal Hotel. We're up on the 89th floor, but without further ado, I'm all packed up and it's time to get down to the airport. Today, we're flying with KLM in their newer business class aboard their 777 through to Schiphol. It's going to be one hell of a long journey, so we'll get a really good look at the airline. Never featured them before on the channel, so it's one that I'm really looking forward to. So without further ado, I'm going to get down to ground level. We'll head off to the airport and get checked in on our way to Amsterdam. I must say, Seoul is an absolutely stunning city. The people and the food are such huge standouts. If you are visiting, do be aware of a little bit of a longer transit through from the main airport through to the city. Most longer haul international flights come into Incheon. It's around 90 or so minutes by cab, so quite a distance, but actually it's a very attractive cab ride just along the Han River into the city. If you like mega projects, Seoul's Incheon Airport would definitely be one for you. It took 9 years just to construct the initial terminal and runways. It was all constructed on an island far from Seoul. Quite an interesting project actually to look into. I can wait to jump back inside. It's always a pleasure transiting indeed using this airport. So let's head on through. Alrighty, so that's me arrived into the airport here. Incheon, it's absolutely stunning. It's not brand new, but goodness, it looks absolutely fantastic. From here, maybe an hour or so's wait until check-in's open. I am really early on this occasion, but we'll head down, see if the KLM desks are open, get checked in, and then it'll be through to the lounge. KLM being a member of SkyTeam, it was Terminal 2 that I was using on that afternoon. This seems to be the place where they put all of the SkyTeam members. Thankfully, the check-in desks opened 4 hours before the flight departed. Mercifully, as mentioned, I was pretty early on that day. There was virtually no one in the queue, so it was nice and easy checking in. Of course, business class does get those Sky priority lanes, and it was a real pleasure throughout the check-in process. Alrighty, so that's immigration and security cleared, nice and seamless. Next up is to find the lounge. You just see my little lounge guide just there, so that's what we're following, and hopefully we'll be there in no time at all. In the end, it was nice and easy finding the lounge. There was a couple of escalators up to it. It was just near gate 250. It was the Cow Lounge that I was directed to. This is one of the Korean Airlines lounges at Incheon International Airport. I thought it was actually really good. It was busy, really busy when I turned up, as you kind of expect for that time into the evening. But as the night went on, it just got quieter and quieter, and thankfully easier and easier to film. Had some great sections. I think the standout was a huge buffet, absolutely massive, great buffet throughout the lounge. There was also a nice bar that was attended. There was also a self-service area with it. Huge noodle bar as well, had some really interesting little features. So overall, it was a really very good time in the lounge. Those beer drinkers amongst you, I know that there's some amongst you. I get some comments about the beers. To have the self-service beers, I thought was actually pretty cool. I don't like it, but great to have nonetheless. After a number of hours on the road, I was well ready to help myself to a couple of my favourite Korean dishes, the Korean fried chicken and the bulgogi. Take a seat and enjoy. Really glad to be able to report that a huge percentage of the seats in the lounge had direct power access. The international plug socket adapters, the little USBs there, were very much appreciated by me on that evening. In terms of some of the additional other creature comforts, the lounge also had a relaxation area or sleeping room. Didn't get an opportunity to try it out on that occasion, but that would have been very good, particularly if you were between flights. I was well ready for a shower at that stage. As mentioned, been on the road for a number of hours, so to have these very private, very modern shower rooms was a really nice touch. As I was getting well used to at that stage, there were a number of really nice little additional touches, such as these fully advanced toilets just here, also pull-out areas so you could sit down whilst doing whatever you needed to do with the mirror. I thought everything was laid out really nicely, very thoughtfully, and actually in terms of availability on the showers, although it was getting quieter at this stage in the lounge, I was able just to walk straight on in without even having to wait, which was very much appreciated. My departure time was around 11 PM, so time was really starting to get on. I loved how quiet the lounge got in time, gave me an opportunity to see a few of the other areas. Particularly liked what they did with the bar after the bartender had gone. This just became a self-service area. There was also then a bit of a TV/cinema type room, which I thought looked pretty cool as well. That was certainly a fab time in the lounge. For now, it's time to head down to the gate and we'll jump on board. When I arrived at the gate, couldn't film too much. It was a little bit manic, truth be told. Boarding, a little bit so-so, but after a bit of chaos, we were eventually heading on board and checking out this brand new 777 cabin with KLM. Now, before I show you the seats themselves, a couple of really important points to make. I was sat in the rear of the two business class cabins. There was a far larger one out front and then a far more intimate one in behind. Usually these cabins work really nicely. They have a smaller feel, feels a bit more like perhaps a smaller private jet or something like that. I was seated in seat 9K, so it was a window seat. First impressions were pretty good. However, the premium economy cabin is right behind and they were frequently serving premium economy through the cabin, so whenever I stepped out of the seat, it did feel like a little bit of a highway with the crew constantly going past. You'll see there's not really an abundance of toilets, and because there's not a galley until much further back, the crew were using that forward galley an awful lot for the premium economy cabin. Notice also the position of the toilet is on the opposite side of the aircraft in terms of my closest toilet, so you did have to cross what was an incredibly busy galley. If I was flying once again KLM in their business class, I'd simply sit in that forward business class cabin. It'll just be, I think, far more quiet, far more peaceful. Overall, however, a really decent first impression with KLM. I thought the crew did a fab job as we were all welcomed on board. The new cabin presented absolutely beautifully. Seats look modern, great forward entertainment system just there. Look, plenty of room, and most importantly, an awful lot of privacy as well. One of the aspects that I really look for when entering into a new business class cabin is those touches of quality. What is the seat backed with? What is it surrounded by? Is it cheaper plastics or is it nicer materials like leather and other sound deadening materials, etc.? I thought KLM did a good job on this front. Waiting for us at the seat was a nice little amenity kit, which we'll get into in just a moment, and also a pair of slippers. Sadly, as I come to mention a little bit later, no pyjamas were provided on this particular flight, despite it being quite a long overnight flight. As you'll come to see, storage and charging options were in abundance in this seat. I'd never once seen wireless charging before on an aircraft, so this was a really nice little feature. Check out just how big this footrest is just here. I had no worries at that moment in time just how comfortable this bed was going to be on board. I think one of my comments going away was just how functional the seat was. That sounds like a bit of a criticism really, but everything was just where you'd expected it. It almost felt a little bit Germanic in that case. You had all of the features all within easy reach. It was a really well designed seat and quality was there as well. Alrighty, so that's us on board. Seat looks absolutely fantastic. Cabin, really very good indeed. Looking forward to the pre-departure service and then getting skybound for that lovely, hopefully, evening meal. Alas, I was getting ahead of myself. Just there, of course, we had the pre-departure service that was coming around. I sat back, enjoyed a glass of the bubbly and also a massage. Oh, the modern luxuries on board a flight. Let's get a taste and see what it's like. Thumbs up, just there. We were well getting ready for the pushback at this time. Just time before we do so, however, to check out first the amenity kit. Overall, it wasn't a bad little kit. Nicely designed with all of the various little lotions and potions that you need. Some of the elements looking a little bit clinical, you could say, and the likes of Qatar Airways, Emirates will be well ahead on this particular front. Talking of kit, quick note about suitcases. I have had a lot of questions about them recently. I use Level 8. I've been using them for some time. They're a friend of the channel, particularly like their zipless suitcases. You can check out a few more details in the description below. Just before we take off, all that's left for me to say is that if this is your first time watching the channel, I'd love to have you subscribed. I release weekly video content from the likes of Qatar Airways, Emirates, British Airways, and so many other carriers. So if this is your thing, hit that subscribe button and you'll never miss a beat on the channel. As we take to the skies, we'll kick off by having a quick look at the bathrooms. Nothing super special going on just here. Did like the addition, little lotions and potions, and also the design on that far wall. I do like to see slightly bigger bathrooms if possible in the business class, but realise this isn't always possible, particularly on slightly older 777s, but not a bad start on the whole just here. Sadly, no pyjamas were offered on this route, but I was donning the slippers, as you can see just there. Getting back to the seat, this is as good a time as any to cover off the entertainment, so let's just jump straight in and take a look. Good quality headset to kick things off, so that was great. Nice big modern screen, as you can see, instant response just there, which is absolutely wonderful. In terms of content, I didn't get massively stuck into it, but it did look as though they had a decent number of selections. There was then also a little controller where you could have controlled the entertainment system or alternatively previewed a few bits and pieces directly on that smaller screen itself. As for the Wi-Fi, a little bit mixed just here. Great to see them offering messaging completely free of charge through the duration of the flight. There was then a couple of additional options going all the way up to the stream. To be honest, at €38, little bit punchy really for a single flight. What I did like, however, was the fact that they had this portal where you could track your route. On that evening, we were flying right the way across Asia and got everything kicked off with a nice warm towel to start. With us now having taken to the skies, my mind was quickly turning towards food. Well, firstly, check out this dining table. I thought this was wonderfully modern, looked nice and clean. Really nice and sturdy as well, so it would have been great for working on or indeed dining on, as we'll do in a moment. In terms of the menus, they came a little bit separate. So in the one you had the food, alcoholic options minus the wine, and then on the other side it was then the wines, of course also non-alcoholic options as part of the main menu as well. In terms of the food services, well, it was to be two: a main meal, late night dining service operation, followed then by a breakfast a little bit later into the flight. We'll do both of them together, I promise. So we go a little bit deeper into this menu, you can start to see some of the alcoholic and indeed non-alcoholic options, and then onto the other menu, it was the wines. That was a decent little selection. Always nice to see a picture and nice write-up against each of the bottles. This is quite akin actually to something that Qatar Airways and I think Emirates do as well, so it's nice to see them taking this approach as well. Now, unfortunately, on the food front, I was really keen to go for that local selection. They're one of my favourite Korean dishes on the menu, and unfortunately, by the time they got to me, that one had completely run out. Gonna have a little bit of a moan here, to be honest. They had just a couple of options on the menu. One of them came highly recommended, and really, if you're doing that, you need to make sure you've got one for at least everyone. The chicken, it was okay. It was a bit premium economy-esque, if I'm gonna be honest, and it wasn't a great start by them on that front. I think one area where they were undeniably really strong was the little touches. I absolutely loved the detail on the tray, which then translated over to the cutlery. This was absolutely stunning. Whilst the wine was a little bit average, the dessert selection looked pretty good, and I think for something that late into the evening, hit the spot quite nicely. The cabin crew then followed it up with a selection of chocolates. I thought this was a nice little touch, and then also an aperitif selection. I went with the limoncello, and it rounded off the dinner quite nicely. I quite like this little feature on the entertainment screen just to show you the spacing between the meal services. That gave me all of the information that I needed, that breakfast was going to be a good few hours away so I could make the most of it and get a nice rest. With that suite door shut, created a really private space with the seat flat, felt really nice and padded. Initial impressions on the bed was that it was looking superb, and by the time it was all made up, I couldn't wait to jump in and see exactly what it was going to be like. As I jumped in, I'm pleased to say it didn't disappoint. It was one of the comfiest business class beds I've experienced in recent times. Huge amount of room for your feet. Didn't feel at all like you were sleeping on a converted seat. Top marks to KLM just here for the overall bed design. Alrighty, so just getting settled into what is a really comfortable bed. Looking forward to getting some rest. It's been a long journey, so we'll see you on the other side. So that's a solid 9 or 10 hours or so sleep, feeling absolutely amazing. Time for breakfast. Cheers. What I quite liked about the breakfast service is they pushed it really late in the flight. I actually managed to get around 9.5, maybe even 10 hours sleep on that return flight, and it worked absolutely wonderfully. In terms of the breakfast selection, I loved how this was presented. Again, this followed many of the nicer touches from the evening meal. Before, the main dish I'd actually opted for was the pancakes, and this was a real standout for me. I know the cheese just there, it's a little bit more of a continental thing for me. First thing in the morning, cheese isn't always the best touch, but really to have this sort of breakfast with those sort of sunrise views out of the window, it was absolutely stunning, and those pancakes actually went down very nicely indeed. Quite like the accompaniment as well, the orange juice, the fruit, the yogurt, etc. Overall, I was really impressed with the breakfast offering. After the breakfast service, the crew came around with a gift for each of the business class passengers. These are the little houses. If you haven't seen a KLM review before, these will be pretty new for you. So they're part of a really big collection almost, if you like, of different designs, and you can collect them over the years. I think there was around 70 or something crazy like that in total, so I got the opportunity to choose my favourite one on the tray. It was a really nice passing little gesture, I thought, from the crew. Nice way to round off the flight. I'd never seen this with other airlines before. I could sit back, enjoy those beautiful sunrise views, and take in that final little touch from them. This trip has seen me deploy my brand new camera for the first time on a set of long haul flights, and it was definitely earning its keep as the sun came up. The scenes were absolutely gorgeous. Hopefully some of those wonderful colours are being relayed to you just there. So as this epic flight starts to draw to a close, good time for me to reflect back on what had been an interesting first experience flying with KLM in their long haul business class. First, let's take the positives. I thought the seat, particularly the bed, was absolutely fantastic. The layout of the seat, the design, the touches of quality were absolutely superb. Big shout out also to the crew. They had a number of Korean-based crew working this flight as it was flying over from Seoul, and they were so sweet and they did such a fantastic job. In terms of some of the downsides then, I do feel as though the layout of the cabin could have been an awful lot better. To be serving the premium economy cabin from a galley located within the business class, it just isn't ideal. It really increases traffic. I do feel as though they could have benefited from at least a couple of additional toilets as part of the business class cabin as well. The catering really wasn't ideal as well into the evening. Not sure if they were caught out by the sheer amount of people perhaps staying up and having a meal, or perhaps they just didn't get enough meals loaded on, but that is something I think they really need to take a look at. And finally, I think the all-important question, would I fly with KLM business class again? And yeah, absolutely I would. I think next time I would sit a little bit further forward into the cabin. That would go a long way to negating many of the issues that I felt, such as catering running out, or indeed being in that slightly busier rear section. I felt as though the rates were pretty competitive on this flight as well, so yes, I'd really look forward to jumping on board with them again. I'd love to try out some of their other cabins as well. Finally, if you're thinking of flying one of the big European carriers in their business class, I recently reviewed Air France, and I will put a link to that video in the bottom left just now. They were definitely pretty interesting, particularly on the catering front. Otherwise, all that's left for me to say is to thank you so much for watching today's video. I'll see you in another one real soon.